Hello, everybody out there in radio, TV, and internet land. Welcome to a call to action with your host, Alex C. Habersham. Thanks for joining us today, and you will be glad you did because with me today, I have the dynamic duo
Mm,
in the persons of a mother and a daughter.
okay.
And what's equally as important is what they are engaged in. I was at a training about a week ago, and I brought up the concept of mental health. And there were about 12 people in the room, and we were talking about how there's such a need for counseling and interaction as it relates to mental health. And I asked the 12 people, I said, now, were it available, if you knew where it was available, how many of you feel like you need to go and talk to a mental health counselor or feel that there's a need in your life to engage with somebody that can assist you in analyzing, viewing, and promoting and dealing with your mental health? And 10 out of the 12 people raised their hand. I immediately picked up the phone and called a mental health counselor in the person of Miss Andrea Cooke, who's one of my guests today, along with her mother, Miss Gloria Cisse. And together, no, I said together, I'm going to give Andrea half of your company, Gloria. Well,
We do
together
we
they
do
are,
run the company together. Yeah.
okay. Well, together they do run Southern Center for Choice Theory,
Yes.
which is an organization that deals in mental health and has done so for quite some time. And I just want to take the time. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that mental health is a real problem in our community.
Mm,
And what's even a greater problem is the acknowledgement, not those guys and girls that I talked to a couple of weeks ago, but generally, we tend to shy away from the need and the advantages of securing help from a mental health perspective. So we've got this company, Southern Center for Choice Theory, and they've also got other initiatives going on in the community to address
mm-hmm.
that very prevalent and very real problem. So I'm so happy to have them on the show today. Not because we're friends, not because they are very, very efficient, but because, like them, we want to try to address that phenomenon in our community. And that's what they are doing. And I'm so happy that they are doing it. And I'm so happy that they are on our show today. So we're going to begin with mom, since she is the mom.
Okay.
Just talk a little bit about yourself and talk about the formation of the company.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll delve into, and then she's an international uh, mental health professional. I knew she was out of the country
That's right.
doing mental health work. So, we're just so fortunate to have her on today. Miss Cisse?
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Alex C. Habersham, for having us on the show today. We really do appreciate it. One of the three ACs in the room.
That's it.
We really, really appreciate the opportunity to be here. But I was actually thinking about the other day how I got around to doing what it is that I do, and I can go all the way back to my childhood. My mom took me to a counselor when I was a young child in the early 60s, and I didn't get what I needed then. But over time, as I grew and started, getting to know people and getting to know myself and my circumstances, it became extremely evident to me that not only did I need my own mental health counseling, but that there was such a tremendous need in our community, especially in the Black and Brown community, because not only do we live with and deal with the traumas of today, but the research has told us that we are also dealing with the traumas of our ancestors that's imprinted on our DNA. So it makes it, it just makes me feel extremely extremely well, properly positioned. And especially because I get to do this work with my daughter, who is also a mental health professional, who also understands the significance of us as African Americans, as descendants of formerly enslaved people, and just having the background, having had our own traumas, I think it's just very important for us to be able to see our community through the lens that we see it through, but not just about the harm that's been done, but we have the hope for change.
That's outstanding. So how about you? The other AC, Andrea Cooke, and we have Gloria Cisse, who's the mother, and Andrea, who's the daughter. And, let me just come out of the chute saying that they both are very, very active in the community. And Andrea, they both are, but I've had the opportunity to work with Andrea on several initiatives, the Bear Sneaker Ball, the Bicentennial, just to mention a couple. And I just want to publicly thank both of you. I know you've got a business, but it doesn't stop at the business,
No.
for your community
Mm,
involvement. But we want to delve more specifically today, although that's important, with trying to impart information that's going to shed some light on
mhm,
the programs and initiatives that you all have and have going on in the community. And somehow I'm interested in maybe in trying to find the key
mm,
to help unlock more willingness
mhm,
to
mhm,
admit and to be attuned to and be inclined to seek out mental health. If I stump my toe, I go to the doctor.
that's right.
People don't have a problem with going to a medical doctor, but then when for some reason, I don't know what you want to call it, a stigma, but I don't know what's preventing it. But people, and then that's why we got so many problems because people don't admit and they don't acknowledge that that we need to talk to somebody.
Mhm,
Right.
So talk a little bit, Andrea, if you would, about, well, a little bit about yourself first, and then talk about the company, and then you all can I'm gonna wind you up, and y'all just talk about, you know, the Macon Mental Health Matters and the new initiative you got on your private practice, just all things leading to mental health and mental health counseling and the advantages of it. Andrea?
Okay, so I am very proudly the youngest daughter of Dr. Gloria Cisse, and I am a proud mother of eight. And so we created this business, the Southern Center for Choice Theory, back in October of 2010. And it was out of a need to create more opportunities for Black and brown people, specifically Black and brown women, um, to to own businesses, but also to own this specific type of business. There's being a counselor, there's going to be any room you walk in, you're going to find more women in the counseling field than you'll find men, but you're not going to find a whole lot of owners that are women. And but we also wanted to do business in a different way, where not only was representation important, but the way that we treated people was important. And we firmly believe that that was the basis for how we were going to shift the way that people viewed therapy and therapeutic interactions from a stigmatizing lens. So we began our work with a very stigmatizing population, which are, sex offenders. And so we would not only work with sex offenders, but we work with children who've been sexually abused. And then we then started working with the populations of like people who have been involved in family violence, because we were attempting to take care of the whole person. Yes, we knew what people did, but we situated the problem outside of the person. So our work has always been very person-centered. Then we branched out into doing work with the Department of Family and Children Services, to working with the city of Macon on some other, some smaller initiatives. And then met our newly elected Mayor Miller, and didn't not pressure. It wasn't pressure, but it was more of um a, a pretty near constant conversation about the fact that Georgia was 51st in access to mental health services, and what was Macon going to do to address it. And so out of that came the Macon Mental Health Matters initiative, which provides no cost mental health services to any Macon-Bibb County resident. And so we get to do a very hands-on but very creative approach to addressing the disparities in mental health services. We get to specifically address the social determinants of mental health, which a lot of organizations don't get to do because of the bureaucratic red tape. And then I'm gonna pass it on to my mom because she speaks very technically about all the stuff we do. But there's one thing that we're doing now that is really exciting to me. It's a new initiative. It's called the Community ACEs study. So we're doing a community-wide survey where we're assessing as many people as who will take this survey and about ACEs, which is adverse childhood experiences, and how those experiences can negatively impact the people in our community's lives. And so I'm gonna bounce it over to my mom.
And I am so excited about this initiative, this idea that we are going to really put our hands on the pulse of what's actually happening for the people in our community. And that's finding out what our ACEs score is as a community. It's important that as many people as possible respond to the survey so that we can get as accurate an opinion or idea as possible. But it will also help us to be able to understand, or maybe be more specific about the types of services that we would need to direct in a particular area or towards a particular population. I think it's going to be, I don't know that anybody else has done anything like this before, but we already know nobody else has done the making anything like the Macon Mental Health Matters initiative. But we don't believe that anyone else has put their finger on the pulse of their community and said, what is your number when it comes to adverse childhood experiences? And we hope what the information that we get from these surveys will, like I said earlier, help us to be able to specifically identify services that are needed and populations that we need to target. You'd asked something about earlier about the things that what can we do to get people to be more inclined to ask for counseling or come to counseling. And and Andrea talked about this some too, in where she talked about all the innovative, creative kinds of ways that we are taking mental health services, mental health counseling to the community, with the pop-ups and participating in resource fairs and doing drumming in the community, and having counselors there so that if people, want to talk to a counselor, they have access to somebody. It doesn't have to be a therapy session, and likely it won't be a therapy session, but they can do that. But another great thing that is an outcome of this entire Macon Mental Health Matters initiative is that we are not required to give people a diagnosis, right? Because because it's not necessary. Actually, what we're working on are the symptoms. What any counselor would be working on are the symptoms that a person is experiencing that is bringing them to the mental health setting. But because there's not this layer of bureaucracy where we have to kind of do all the things we do through insurance, we can actually really shift the way that people receive services and care through the Macon Mental Health Matters initiative. We engage people as if they were a part of our family, right? Because everybody has a sense of belonging, a need to belong. And if we treat people, this is part of our belief system in the organization. If we treat people the way we want to be treated, but better than that, if we treat them the way they want to be treated, like human beings, then they're more inclined to come through our doors and stay as a part of our organization. And now I'm starting to drift because there's so many things that come up.
You go where you want to go. Go where you want to go.
Yeah, I thought about Taranga, and I thought about how, you know, we have this, not only do we not have to call people a label or anything other than their names, you know, and when we have our conversations, we abide by all the confidentiality, we do all the things that we're supposed to do. But our team is encouraged to, in a very person or honoring manner, to only see people as human beings. We tell, Andrea mentioned the people that have committed sexual offenses and the people who committed family violence offenses. We tell them, you are not your offense. You are a human being who has made a mistake, right? And however, it's a pretty big mistake. You've made a mistake. But if you choose to, if you agree to participate in this process, you can change that behavior, right? You can change, because it is the behavior that needs to be changed. You can change that. We believe that everybody, like, who steps across our threshold, actually who dials our number, has a story to tell. Their story is valuable, right? So we call it story catching. It's clinical interviews and clinical intakes and so on and so forth, but we listen. We're actively listening to people's stories so that we can, because the story holds the key, right, to their struggles and to their successes.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And so if we hear the story, if we're listening, and this is because this is also the way that we as Black and Brown people are accustomed to storing and sharing information is through oral transmission, right? We love collecting information, hearing stories. We listen to story. I know we all got a storyteller in our family. But even traditionally, from a traditional African perspective, we had the griots, and we had who were the oral historians. And what I found by asking people that we work with, would you rather fill out the paper, or does it feel better if somebody's just kind of asking you questions and listening to your story? And they say to me, this feels way better, because the paper and just filling out a piece of paper seems very kind of disconnected from the work that you're trying to get done. And so therefore it's still a belief system, right? That relationships are very important. And
Right.
we want to start building the relationship from the very beginning.
Okay. Well, I want to make an observation first. It's very interesting talking about ACEs.
Mhm.
I found it interesting, how it oozes out, and how many kids or women were molested.
Mhm.
You just be amazed at, very successful people
Mhm.
who dare to admit that they were molested at a young age. So I find it very intriguing, to really talk about how what happens to us when we are young or when we're children, and how that affects us, for the rest of our life. So,
Mhm.
so just kind of comment on that, and what I would like to happen, Miss Gloria and AC, I would like for when people hear this is that they begin to reflect
Mm.
on their childhood and on their upbringing and see if they can identify a
Mhm.
factor in his or her life
Mhm.
that could have contributed, and look, let me just say this, you, because you get mental health doesn't mean you crazy,
No, it doesn't.
you know. So I think that's a stigma that well, he going to a psychiatrist, he must be crazy. They going to that. No, it does not mean that, because guess what? I'm raising my hand. We all need it. We all need it. So, so if you would just talk about that relationship of
Mm.
how what happened to you when you were younger can be still affecting you, and how acknowledging it and at least realizing it, because we want people to think about it. Hopefully they will reflect on their childhood as a result of this conversation. And then let's talk about how they can kind of address it present day, to feel better and be better and do better.
I'm a marriage and family therapist, so I believe that family systems are incredibly important. It becomes increasingly more apparent that we have to begin to not just engage in prevention programs, but we need to engage in programs that are from the perspective of wherever you are on a on that trajectory, whether it's before a situation takes place, whether it's whether you're getting services during the situation that is plaguing you, or after. And I believe firmly, I mean, with the idea of this community-wide ACEs study, is to add to the body of knowledge that we have in general about adverse childhood experiences. What makes this a little bit more unique is that we will specifically know about Macon-Bibb County. And like Dr. Cisse was alluding to earlier, we've not been able to find any past situation where a community has taken the initiative to find out its own community-wide ACEs score. And so having an opportunity to put this out in the community, and hopefully, I mean, we're hoping for 100 responses. We put it out yesterday. We've already got 22 responses. So I think that people are excited to take this test so that they know their own score. I mean, I like hearing Dr. Cisse say that word, like, knowing your score. I mean, when you know your score, you can do something about it. And not only can you do something about it, then you can help to change the imprint that is made on your DNA from those past situations, but also the current ones that you've experienced, so that we can help to produce better children in the future. But I'm going to acquiesce. So Dr. Cisse.
You say all those important things and then say, oh, I'm going to acquiesce. Okay, that's all right. Slide it over here. Okay. Two things. Okay, so oftentimes what we don't do is we reflect all the time. We're always thinking about the things that we experienced. But what I have heard people do is say, oh, but I didn't have any traumas in my childhood. And I asked them things like, oh, so did your parents stay together? They divorced. If your parents divorced, that's a trauma. Did anybody in your family go to jail? Right? Anybody in your family go to jail? Guess what? That's considered a traumatic or adverse experience. Did anybody in your family, we all had crazy Uncle Joe.
Yeah.
Everybody had one of those in the family. Then that's an adverse childhood experience. If you happen to live in a place where there was violence in your community, guess what? That was an adverse childhood experience. And so we think, and we want to, I think partly out of what we may refer to as self-preservation, is view our past through these rose-colored glasses, right? I had a wonderful childhood, and I did. I love my family. In the whole scheme of things, I survived. I'm here. It was a wonderful place. I had wonderful grandparents. Many parts. That's one of the things that helps with our resilience, is having someone who cared about us, having some positive experiences as opposed to all negative experiences, right? But the reality is there was something negative that happened to all of us, right? And so even if your score on this particular survey is 1, that's okay. You help add to the numbers, right? So we can average it out and we can get a score. But what I would beg people to not think that they had any, I'm not going to take it because I didn't have any adverse childhood experiences. You don't know what's on the test. And just take the survey, right? Just take the survey. And I've mentioned some things that, people just kind of gloss over. You mentioned, Alex, you mentioned the sexual abuse in childhood and, some of those negative, like, watching your parent be assaulted, or whatever. But people don't think those things like having a relative that goes to prison, having a parent who kind of disappears from your home, or all those things can be adverse experiences, and they do impact the way that we live right now. If you were an infant, I'm going all the way back to infancy. Actually, what I'll probably talk about is perinatally. Right? If you're in the body of a woman who is being assaulted, guess what? You're being assaulted too. If you are in the body of a woman who is experiencing some form of mental health disturbance, guess what? You're going to experience it in a way too. And so there are those things that we experience in childhood. I know everybody and many people have heard of attachment theory. And it impacts the way that we have relationships as adults. It will stick with us our entire life unless we do some work to get it corrected, right? And sometimes the harm is so great that it's not possible to correct it. But we want to believe that if people, as long as people are alive and willing, they have the capacity to get some change.
Well, what I'm hearing and feeling is that we need to do this doggone show quarterly. Because I mean, it's so deep and so necessary until 30 minutes is just not enough time. I appreciate what you're doing for the community through Macon Mental Health Matters. And I'm particularly interested in the ACEs program. And I'm encouraging everybody to just go in and take it, be a part of the solution. That way you're not a part of the problem. So
Amen.
You all are really a part of the solution. I really appreciate it. It's Macon-Mental-Health-Matters.com. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes, sir.
That's a website. So you can go to it and learn more. And then with group therapy, you can go in and just listen. And please don't think that it's something wrong with trying to examine your mental health. I'm your host, Alex Havisham. Thank you all so much, Miss Gloria Cisse and Miss Andrea Cooke, who are the owners of the Southern Center for Choice Therapy and who are the developers of Macon Mental Health Matters. And you can go to MaconMentalHealthMatters.com to find out more information. Have a great day.
www.makingblackpages.com